We don't have an intro for these.
We don't.
So, hi, Andrew.
Hi. I mean, how about welcome to Behind the Mask, where people talk about one thing in particular, and by people we mean us.
And by one thing, it's your favorite D&D podcast, Masks Martyrs. Maybe your second favorite. I'm okay with being the B team.
Yeah, I think that at this point in the recordings, we are solidly
we're solid second stringers, and I dig that.
Yeah, I mean, I would go so far as to say we're JV right now.
But we qualified for junior varsity, and qualified means we went out to the tryouts, and the school the school legally couldn't deny us on the basis of the fact that we're really bad at football.
Yeah. Now that being said, I think that we're still in a growing process in the backlog of recordings.
For sure. But I think the growth is satisfying to listen to, or at least that's what I've been told.
I think that we've grown, even in the course of the last few arcs that we've released. I think that we've grown a lot as a group.
So welcome everyone to Behind the Mask, your favorite Title III funded podcast, which is legally mandated to be listened to by the school boards across the nation.
It's true.
For consideration. That's how we're known. So I'm just going to kind of go through a brief rundown of what we're going to cover in this one, because we have a lot to go through. We're going to start by touching base for everyone on things characters have been doing off screen between the arcs, because we don't talk about it in game, but I think I mentioned in the last Behind the Mask, that was something we were talking about out of game a lot and doing because it wasn't a podcast at that point. So that made sense to do back then, and it doesn't anymore. So I'm going to go over some of that. We're going to talk a little bit about the world building, some stuff that I have discussed with listeners of the podcast that I wanted to get Andrew's feedback on. I want to go through some of the player characters that have come in that they're NPCs now, and just, let you guys know who they were, and talk about some stuff that was going on with the players outside of game, and then we're going to get into listener questions. So that is the basic shape of this one, and let's get started.
Let's rock and roll.
All right, so outside of game, I need to beat by beat of everything Kahlo has done since the beginning of the game, because he's objectively the best one.
Realistically, Kahlo has just kind of gone through the days and just kind of gotten, just lived his life.
Yeah,
he's
I like it.
He's not trying to be anything special. He's just himself.
No, he's just a bird,
he's a bird. He's a bird. But I mean, realistically, Kahlo's been working with Rufus. He's
doing
been
champion stuff.
Yeah. In addition to that, he's been kind of just going around Tintilla, kind of getting his bearings, seeing what he can see. He's still
kind of new in town. They've been here for a couple months longer than we have. But
yeah, he's relatively new, but he also
this was mostly a goof, by the way.
Well, no, but I mean, literally, he is from another continent.
So he's learning the culture.
Yeah, so for
trying to find out why our music is so terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and specifically, why do you not appreciate good music? Is really
why don't we appreciate good music? I think about that every day, and how a quick correction that I did want to get in here is that we refer to the shawm as a stringed instrument when Kahlo is first introduced. It is the instrument he is proficient in. It is not a stringed instrument. The shawm is a reeded flute.
Do I say it's a stringed instrument?
You say that there are strings, and I think maybe in the ad break I mentioned it, but I think I forgot. So I just want to get it out there.
That was a mistake, because
this is very important content, that the shawm is a reeded flute and Kahlo does not have lips, so figure it out, guys. We can't do all the work for you. Use your imagination.
Because it's specifically a bad, because it's if you go to YouTube and look up shit flute recordings.
Yeah, it's just it's a shawm.
Yeah, it's someone playing the recorder badly, and that's just how it is in
if you want to get the experience of what it feels like to listen to Kahlo, go listen to a recorder cover of My Heart Will Go On. It's very, with the backing, it's very fun.
Or Take On Me is my favorite.
Yeah. So, to get the easy one out of the way, no one has any idea what June is doing off screen at any time.
Correct.
Presume June and Wisteria. Presumably shadowy knife things.
Yeah, and part of that was just the nature of
Sarah was not a permanent member of the cast at that point. Well, she was permanent, but she came in and out as her schedule allowed.
Yeah, and the schedules weren't quite lining up.
I think she was in school at that time. So she like had a lot going on.
Possibly. I think what I distinctly remember is that like at that point we were really locked into like 2 slots a week really, which was either Friday night or like Saturday morning, sometimes Saturday night
at like 7 a.m.
Yeah,
because
just because
that was just the only time we all could make it work because Katie was in Japan and we all had jobs. I was in graduate school and Andrew worked a lot and it was just a big mess. So, you know, that's why, in case anyone was wondering why Sarah plays a Wetworks operator who comes in and out and operates parallel to the party, it's because scheduling.
And honestly, kudos to Sarah for being willing to say, like, hey, it's okay to play without me.
Yeah,
because I think that I think that in a lot of groups there's sort of a pressure to like, we can only play if everybody's here, or like if someone can't make it, like they feel like
they feel bad or
and you know, like obviously you want to have the group there as much as possible, but Sarah not only like couldn't make it and was okay with us playing, she also like gave me in universe reasoning and justification for why a character would not be there a lot of the time.
Like she'll build around it and it's very admirable
and it's natural within the world, which, you know, in a lot of cases, like if someone can't make it, it's always like
just
the day of like
your bag of holding.
Yeah, or it's like the day of, they'll say like, oh, Andrew, sorry, I can't make it, and then I have to like, you know, pull together like, oh, I guess I'm running 3 people's characters now, you know?
Yeah.
But
so,
you know, Sarah built a very, very well constructed character to fit within the world.
So like, shout out to Sarah and June Steria.
Yeah. And the reason that we can't get into like a ton of like what June does in between
a lot of it's a spoiler.
Yeah, a lot of it's spoilers, and it's like specifically a lot of it's like me figuring out like, who does Sarah want to bring to the next adventure? Like they're all June,
because Anne can be anyone.
Yeah, yeah. Like who? Like which? Like who do you want to show up? Is this a pre-existing personality, or
she basically has to make a new character every time an identity gets burnt? So like, kudos to Sarah. Sarah's great.
It's just a really fun character, and kind of like once Sarah like realized that it could be like, oh, like this character can show up and sort of like physically and personality wise be anyone. She just took that she just took that all the way, and it was just, it's so good.
Makes my heart happy.
So we also had Monty's just been hiding in his room.
Yeah, I know that in the arcs when Reagan was still living at the residence, he and Reagan were hanging out a lot, like in the middle of the night, because they both have night terrors.
But
so
he's like,
but
fun. Since Reagan left, I think he's literally just been like,
yeah, because it's like, oh, Reagan's not here to kill anything that tries to come for me, so I'm gonna hide in my room.
Yeah.
And then Brika, I think, mostly has been trying to get Monty out of his room.
Which
is a concerned mother hen.
Which we saw a little bit of that in the...
we did.
At the beginning of Odd Overtures. Like, that was...
Yeah.
Literally, like, the first scene with Brika and Monty was Brika going to, like, try and coax Monty out of his room and talk to him, and Monty, like, blocking the door with a dresser or an armoire, I think it was.
Which then Reagan attempted to walk directly through, like some kind of RoboCop.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
I mean, honestly, if anyone's the RoboCop of this group...
it's probably...
It's gotta be Reagan.
Well, let me think.
God damn it, Andrew.
We'll get back to
Just
it.
let me have this. Will you let me have nothing?
No.
Anyway, nothing. No. Nothing ever. I am so put upon. Anyway, and Reagan has been at the Gorings since the end of Heels and Heroes. She meets with her brothers once a week, roughly, and mostly hangs out with Ellie and Jules. Because Jules, the little ghost boy that is a manifestation of Julius's question mark, knows how to party. So that's exactly what you said to me in canon, that Jules, he knows how to party. Pretty sure. Check the tapes.
And I also think that, like, when it comes to Jules, there is a, you know, Reagan is someone who, like, I think that, like, she's much more comfortable in a protector role than in a, like...
Plus, Reagan likes kids, episode 2, canon.
So. Well, and part of what's been happening with Reagan is, like, sort of a slow, halting transition from, like, you know, death-seeking Avenger to...
Yeah.
Like,
oh, I have things to protect now, and I have to transition into this new role, and now I live in a rich person's house, and that's weird.
Yeah, and like, Ellie sort of was the catalyst for that, but also Ellie is... Ellie is 17 or 18 by now. Ellie is capable of kind of like dealing with her own business.
Yeah, like, she's not a combat class by any stretch, but, like, I think she knows how to manage a staff of, you know, so they have people who protect them on staff at the Gorings, and she handles herself, and they're trying to figure out what their relationship looks like, because they haven't spent a lot of time together since, God, I think Ellie was 8?
No, Ellie was, I think...
Well, she was 9 when when the city that they're from fell, but Reagan hadn't been home in over a year at that point.
Yeah, so they would have last seen each other, like, when Ellie was 8.
So their relationship was mostly based around a 5 through 7-year-old, like, interacting with a 12-year-old Reagan.
And
so.
So like, in a way,
Jules is a kid, and that's easy.
Jules, like, you know, even
he's kind of just taken on the Ellie role for Reagan, I think. Like, this is what I remember my sister kind of being like, and
you still have these instincts that are coming up, and these tendencies that come from being around Ellie, but but like, you can't push them onto Ellie. So
yeah, because she is a grown ass woman with her own life. So, there's this child here, and he doesn't talk to me like I work at a fancy person's house. Hell yeah, we're best friends now. And I will say, on the record, I say a lot that characters are Reagan's best friend, but I do need to put on the record, right now, canonically, Jules is Reagan's best friend.
Rude.
They are BFFs. I'm sorry for us. It's over. Jules is her best friend.
Rude.
That's just how it is. Oh, and she's been realizing she has a concerningly intense crush on Rufus, but we'll get more into that as the podcast continues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we have touched on it briefly in the last arc, but that informed basically all of her decisions during the Overtures arc. So.
Yeah, which actually, I do want to touch on that a little bit.
Yes.
So around that time, when we were doing that arc, originally based on our recordings, it was like a 3-session arc.
Yeah, it ended up being 4 episodes because the last session was about 2 hours.
I had originally intended for the arc to end with, like, them fighting
with us killing the octopus monster.
Yeah,
it's not an octopus.
Yeah, fighting.
In my heart, I've been calling it an octopus monster for so long that I can't stop now.
Yeah, but the idea
I like to think he looks like the Shape of Water guy.
A little bit in that way that I think that we
probably less sexy.
Yeah,
but everything I end up drawing for Hintilla is hot, so it's probably just as sexy.
Fair.
Let's just own it.
But so the original idea was for the party to fight the Second of the Coming. That was kind of me assuming that that's how it would end, because that's just what happens with D&D groups. You present them with a spooky creature or spooky person,
and then they be either big damn heroes or big damn buttheads, and they kill it either way.
Yeah, either way, like, no matter what the offer was. But you know, I do like adding, I do like the idea of, like, putting an offer on the table and doing world building through that and implying what may come. I did not expect Sarah to take the offer.
I think Sarah, more than any other player at our table at any point, is the least predictable for you.
Yeah, yeah.
She is just, like, operating on a completely separate axis. Sarah lives in 2045, and we're all back here in 2019. And she's like, I know what happens in the future. Don't worry, guys, I got this. And in reality, she's just sitting there like, but she presents like she knows everything that's going to happen. And that confidence, I respond to that.
Well, and I think with Sarah especially, it's like, she's like, I think specifically what makes Sarah a good player at the table is that she is willing to take risks, and she is willing to have the payoffs blow up in her face. Like,
for sure, like 100%, like, Sarah just will go with it no matter what happens. Like, we have a running joke that I don't think she's ever successfully stabbed anyone. Like, she's always doing psychic damage, but I don't think she has ever successfully stabbed anyone.
She's stabbed a couple times, but like, it just, the times when it doesn't work, it feels so, it's so like, and in the moment, it feels so out of character, because it's like, but wait, you're good at this.
And then it's like, well, and it's great.
Yeah.
Sarah, it's great. Sarah knows how to, like, make a bad roll fun more than I think any of the rest of us.
Yeah.
I think this whole episode, from my perspective, is just props to Sarah. I love her.
Yeah, yeah.
And Sarah's also perfectly willing to play morally ambiguous characters, as I'm sure everyone has noticed by now. Mm-hmm. Even though she, in real life, is such a, like, lawful good, pure being of light and truthfulness. And it's very fun.
like if you meet Sarah in real life and if you know Sarah in real life, it makes no sense as to like how she can go from like completely honest, like
I only speak the truth and I am here for you and I support you and we're gonna get through all of the things, and then she's like, I'm just gonna be a knife in the dark and be a colossal asshole today.
Yeah,
she doesn't say asshole because Sarah doesn't curse, but it's just great. I love Sarah.
Yeah,
her dramatic range is beautiful.
It really is, and I think, but like around this time, when it came time for that last session, and Sarah took the deal,
right, I panicked.
Yeah. And we didn't have it on the recording, and it wasn't really something that we talked about like in
because this was something that happened outside of the game. So my ethos for how I approached D&D at that time is very different than how I approach it now. Which is, back then, my main priority is just everybody is having fun, which is also a great thing, but that has become more secondary to me in service of more interesting stories and narrative. But I will cop to the fact I went to Sarah out of game because she was not there for the arc where Reagan had developed her intense crush on Rufus. And I was like, hey, by the way, I just got really invested in this ship. If that changes anything for this decision, I will be actually sad if he end up killing Rufus. Not like depressed for more than like an hour of the game, but like, hey, just so you know, this just happened and I just invested a lot of Reagan's character arc in this crush. Please don't kill Rufus. Okay, bye. And I will cop to that. It's not something I would do at this point in the game, but at that point I was like, the main priority is having fun. It wasn't a podcast, so I wasn't that concerned with the narrative. And that is a conversation I had with Sarah. So I just want to cop to that. I do think that the total party kill we got instead was better. Of Reagan, or of June just exposing Reagan's crush. I think that's fun. But that's not a total party kill. That's just Reagan.
Well, and so to kind of touch on that a little bit, I do think that like that speaks to sort of a like kind of like how a group can get messy here and there in terms of like, so I think it's very natural to want to like, especially with how D&D is like how D&D currently is played by a lot of folks. There's a feeling of like wanting to maintain like the character arcs as they are currently conceived as being constructed,
right? As
well as and I think that like plays into a lot of aspects of it, which can be ships, it can be like keeping an NPC alive, or it could be keeping a character alive, and part of it is D&D can be whatever you want it to be. You can play it however you'd like, but for people who
Plus, that was at the point where I was still DMing, and that's how I run my games. They're very low stakes, very loosey-goosey.
Despite all of my efforts to the contrary as a player.
Despite your efforts to make it crunchy, I gave you some stuff, but like mostly it's a very safe environment. I don't really kill characters. I don't really kill NPCs. I am just a very, hey, we're just gonna play in this sandbox with God mode on and see what happens. Pull out your Game Sharks, kids.
And again, like that's not a bad thing. Like I've talked to
just
folks,
different play styles.
Yeah, like I've talked to folks who like I've talked to folks who really enjoy like playing super like ultra goofy like D&D as well, like all references, all bits. Again, which all that's fine,
totally fine.
But I think that like for a game like the game that we play here,
and especially the game we have ended up playing here,
not by intention, but sort of.
I think the next arc is the first really proper. We have arrived, and this is how we're going to play for the rest of the campaign in terms of like the emotional stakes.
Yeah,
and
the masquerade gets suitably messy throughout.
It gets wild.
And what I think that example, kudos to you for being willing to talk about it, but
like I still stand by my logic at the time because that is who I was at that time. It's like, my main priority is that we're all having fun, and if I have this stupid ship that I am now invested in, then I'm just gonna let my friend know because she's not aware of that situation. But if she still wants to kill Rufus, that's fine.
But
it's still not a decision I would make now.
Yeah, well, and putting that out there has had the effect of like I legitimately think that like June may have killed Rufus.
Maybe if we hadn't had that conversation.
Yeah, and maybe not in that particular
that session because Kahlo might have killed her, but
Yeah, and Sarah Simmons is very willing to like let a character die, but I think that session and part of why I like had Rufus walk by June at the end when she was invisible was because I wanted to give her the option to say like, listen, this is a choice that you made. You wanted to open up this avenue. If you choose to, kill this, like if you want to kill this character, and but it is a thing of like, especially with like who Sarah is, that's something where she wouldn't want she wouldn't want to like make a friend feel bad,
right?
But these are the things that it's important to have the conversations about them as a game transitions to be a little more serious, right?
Yeah, it's just kind of a differing play style, but that's something I will cop to, and I think it's a fun AU to think about if Rufus had died right there. And also presumably June, because Kahlo was within 20 feet of that happening.
Well, and I think...
Also, attacks break invisibility, so yeah, she would have exposed herself.
No, I mean, like, there's a...
I'm just thinking through it.
Yeah, no, like, there's a non-zero chance that June...
and Delia was right there.
I mean, everybody was right there. Mm-hmm. And then you just have a hostile person. But, it's
fun to think about.
Yeah, but it's a thing to say. Player agency is very important. Like, I firmly believe that, especially in a game like this. Like, if you don't let players make their own choices and have their own moments, that can really like throw a wrench in things. And I think that with this example in particular, I think that at the time, that's who you were as a player, and I think that a lot of people, especially as they're becoming invested in a character in a group, they're saying like I really don't want this thing to happen, and will be willing to kind of like try and push to keep someone alive or keep something alive or keep something going as a plot thread,
like in a metagame sense.
Yeah, but those are the moments where like we may not realize it in the moment of just saying like, hey, like I would like for this not to happen. Even saying that to a DM can be a moment of, oh, well, crap, now I have to, like, rethink something. And it's not and I don't think that it's, like, a bad, like, sentiment.
It's all in how you ask. It's, like, all in how you put the information out there. Because, like, if it is genuinely just hey, by the way, this is a character thing going on that you may not be aware of, and I just wanted to put on the table when you're figuring out how this works. It's another thing when you're talking about, like, well, I'll be mad at you in real life if you do this, so don't.
Yeah.
Because that's not cool. So.
I think the best way to go about it is informing without, like...
an expectation of...
Yeah, and
like
just...
a change.
Yeah, and so, like, and so, in terms of, like, keeping up, like, a healthy... like real healthy lines of communication through a table is
that's super important.
I think that in these situations the best way to go about it is to say, for example, hey, this is something that like my character has kind of developed. If this is what your character has to do, this is what your character has to do, and like that is completely okay, because I think that in D&D, I think at the time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time, like, this was, like, a sudden new, like... This is probably like, the first major wrinkle in Reagan's character arc that you had sort of landed on externally of me and my machinations.
Yeah, just, like, completely independent of, like, the family backstory stuff that you were introducing, which I had given you all of those characters, but was not expecting them to show up, and then when they did, there was a certain way that was going to play out. Like, I am pretty easy to telegraph as a player, I think.
Well, and we've also known each other for so long, but, to my original point, I think, is that was, like, the first moment where you were like, oh, like, this is a moment that, like, I'm really excited about with Reagan, and... Yeah,
it was the first time I really got invested in D&D, and I wasn't sure what to do with it.
Yeah, and so...
Just like, oh, shit.
Yeah, and so, like, and so, like, rather than... I think that the moment of... I think that, like, there was a moment of, like, oh, like, this is an option.
Oh, fuck.
And, Sarah would actually do this. And so, like, there was a moment of, like, of kind of like, oh, but this is the thing that's, like, happened.
But I just showed up, I just got here.
Yeah, so. and so I think in those moments, especially for a lot of players, when it's, like, the first time they're getting really invested, there's a moment to be, like, very protective of it and especially in like RP communities, which is what like a lot of y'all came from. The idea is like there are partitions, and it's like, and it's like, well, no, like, this character like, is in my, like, is in, like, my arc, and my, like, little corner of this, so on some level there needs to be, like, a tacit permission given to...
Right, and, like, there's a lot of pre-planning in those communities, like, that is just kind of the culture, is that you discuss how you want to play out an arc with the other people who are going to do it with you before you do it, and then you write it. And that is where basically all of us come from, except for you and Sarah to an extent, though she's done both. She's always had one foot in both.
Yeah, and so, like, I think...
And I was worried if I lost that Rufus connection, because Reagan developing a crush on Rufus is the first organic thing that Reagan's character did. Like, that I wasn't expecting to happen, that I did not plan out. And I was worried if I lost that connection, I was going to lose it and just revert back to permanent Gremlin Reagan, which I probably wouldn't have, just based on what I now know about myself. But at the time, I was like, oh no, I just found this connection, and I was about to, oh shit, oh fuck. I should tell Sarah, just in case.
And that's when, I think that a lot of people sort of hit, like, all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, no, I do care. Especially, like, when you come from, like, a very, like, goof-centric game where suddenly it's like, wait, oh no, I don't want this thing to happen.
Yeah, because Reagan is solidly the comic relief character for the whole first season.
Yeah, and so...
That's going away.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, guys. Reagan's not funny anymore. I mean...
Nothing's really funny
I'm still funny. I am still funny outside of playing Reagan, but after next arc, Reagan's not funny anymore, guys. It's not because of bad things, it's all because of good things, really.
But just
Reagan's humor is very millennial, like, guess I'll die humor. It's very nihilistic.
And then, but Reagan doesn't want to die anymore, which is a big problem.
Now she doesn't want to die, and she's not really sure what to do about it, so mostly she just hangs out with Jules because he knows how to party.
But yeah, and so, like, that's just sort of something that I wanted to touch on a little bit, and just, and say, like, when it comes to those moments in, I think in, like,
in
either...
your games.
Yeah, like, games that y'all are playing to our, however many listeners are listening to this at any point, it's a moment to say, like, this is something, like, this is a character relationship that you really, that if it's something that you really, like, want to explore, or if it's a character, or if it's something about your character that you think is important, you can go to your DM and talk to them about it, but at the same time, like,
always make sure you're respecting the agency of the other players.
Yeah.
Which I maybe didn't do as much as I could have at that time. So that's something I want to own. There's a lot of learning moments in this campaign, which is part of why I love it so much.
Yeah, it's entirely, like, the first season is all, like I said earlier, it's all of us learning not only how to play in some cases, but how to play with each other and figuring out how to put all these puzzle pieces together.
Yeah. That's just the conversation we wanted to make sure we had here. Just, like, full disclosure, I did ask for Rufus. I did go and ask for Rufus's life outside of game.
Yeah, Diana went and begged.
Like, please don't kill him. He's a legit snack.
Begged for the life of the man, and Sarah, like, imperious in her tower, chose to spare him. But like in the moment, that may have seemed like a character beat of like well. Like, yes, Rufus was surrounded by people, but, like, in the future, like, there are some moments here and there where June realistically could, knife a guy.
June will do what June has to do is the thing. Anyway, so one last thing before we get into the listener questions is I want to just give quick credits to all of our player characters turned NPCs that have showed up in the last 3 arcs.
Yeah, so I can go down the list real quick. So there's Mortis Gimghoul, played by Daniel. It was on a Christmas Day D&D one-shot we did, which was...
the second one-shot set in this world,
yes,
right?
Yes, second one-shot.
Yeah.
It was called Rat Catchers.
And that's where the boat came in.
That is, yeah. Well, so that's where the boat came in. That's where the residents came in. That they played...
one question I forgot to put on our list is the boat going to come back? And yes, the boat is important.
Yes, the boat happens. The boat matters. But so we've met Mortis Gimghoul. We've met Laszlo Slabody.
Michael's character from the same one-shot?
Yes, Laszlo Slabody. He's a Dwarven Forge cleric and a bureaucrat of the Circle of the Public Good.
And I love that whole concept so fucking much, just by the way.
He's very big on, like, respect fire codes, please, like, that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Which is...
Listen, the codes are there for a reason. They are all written in blood because we found out these things kill people, please. Also, did you know bridges are great? Infrastructure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
He speaks to me on such a fun... He's like a cleric Leslie Knope, but, like, dwarf chill dude, and it's great.
Additionally, from that group, we've met Masks Martyrs, who is the doorman, the extremely old human fighter, played by Matthew Gary, one of my roommates at the time, one of my dearest friends, who also plays Kahlo and a couple other characters. He was one of like sort of the ground floor, been there from the beginning players.
Right. Well, yeah, because Kahlo was in the original session, with Rufus and Delia and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
But then the other group that we don't really see a lot of yet. They're sort of alluded to. The Break-In Boys, which Tamsin Quintilian, who we met in the Heels and Hero arc a bit more.
Yeah, she is the only one that we have extensively interacted with so far.
Yeah, she's played by Laura Dromerick, another dear friend of mine and roommate at the time.
She's on some other podcasts.
I believe she's on
Fear Initiative.
She's on Fear Initiative, and I believe she's on Dragon Coast Survivor's Guide, I think.
So definitely go check those out, because Laura is great.
But then in addition to that, we also have, from that same group, we have Harper Marx, who is a somewhat mentioned communist paladin.
I think we mentioned him offhand once.
Yeah, played by Matthew again. But then we also have Brick Thrower, who's played by Michael Kurowski, who was a player in my currently inactive Chicago campaign.
We mentioned his music in the last Behind the Mask.
Yeah,
I think that's the context we have. Check it out his SoundCloud.
Yeah, we should link his SoundCloud because he's so good.
I will. I'll put it in the description.
So tremendous. And then
I think that's all of the ones we've actually met.
We met Hank briefly.
Okay.
Hank is a rogue.
And who was Hank?
Hank is an orc rogue. He's played by Michael's then fiance, current wife. Oof, that would have been a weird thing. Then fiance, current wife, Mary Guest, who is...
And this is Michael Kurowski, not Laura.
Yes, Michael Kurowski. Who we all got together for like one shot for his birthday that I ran, and it ended up taking 6.5 hours, but it was...
it happened.
And it was like I think that was her first or second time playing, and she just stuck with it like a absolute champ.
Hell yeah. That's dope.
Mary's great.
Oh, and then we had the Hortensia squad, I was Hortensia.
Yes.
This was from my wedding. Andrew made me a beautiful wedding present, and her name was Hortensia Crow, and then I gave her a Linda Belcher accent.
Yeah.
Because I was just kind of stuck in it that week.
Yeah, and
weddings are a stressful time for everyone.
And I think touching base on that a little bit would actually be good, because this is the first time we're introducing like characters who
who we played, and now they're NPCs.
Yeah. And this is the first. Yeah. And also this is the first time that y'all's characters show up as NPCs. Because it's you as Hortensia. Julia played Grala Raindaughter, a half-orc barbarian.
Yeah. The wedding one shot was their wedding, which was us also, and it was great.
Yeah.
We got married twice in one weekend. It was fabulous.
Yeah. And then let's see.
Mira was Sarah. Yeah. She's the drunk monk.
Mira's the drunk monk. The old man Gregorius was...
I don't think he shows up, but we mention him because Hortensia's like, oh fuck, we lost Gregorius.
Right. He was played by Nate Strock, a friend of ours, who was roommates with Danny for a while. They went to college together.
And he's dope. He was Manfred von Karma in Turnabout Musical Live, if you followed me over from there.
Yeah.
So.
And then Danny played a character named Lysander Ford, who is a gnome artificer, and sort of the...
But he is not there.
Yeah, he's not there either, but sort of the originally we had some grand ambitions of, like, releasing that as a...
Yeah, but the audio is real
The
bad.
audio is like, actually unsalvageable.
So crunchy.
At some point, we're going to, like, transcribe it and re-record it like we've been doing. We just haven't, like... It's
a very long session, and we haven't had the time or resources to do so.
Yeah, and we've been mostly trying to focus on keeping this going, which I think is like keeping this churning along rather than saying, all right, well, we'll take like 2 weeks to try and jam in this so that way this character can kind of make sense.
So it's fine. I feel like everyone just kind of accepted Hortensia into their hearts as their Lord and Savior pretty quickly. Everyone I talked to, anyway.
In the backwoods of Anamore, it did not seem to be tethered today. It found its own way out the door. I ran 1,000 miles today, and I slept beneath the stars, to one day find where I belong, a home where I hang my guitar. Boy, if you know how to leave live on your own and to live by the slip.
Hello, friends! Thank you so much for coming to this week's episode of Masks Martyrs, our second Behind the Mask episode. This is your producer, Diana, and I have some housekeeping and plugs to take care of before we get into the Q&A. So first of all, if you're enjoying the show, we would love if you could share us with a friend this week. We would really appreciate it. We're trying to grow our audience. Or, if you haven't yet, join our Discord server, because I want to talk to all of you. There is a link in the description. Also, we are running a sale on our Etsy shop for the holiday season. If you go to etsy.com/shop/masksandmartyrs and use the promo code HEARTHLIGHT at checkout, that is hearth, like where you keep a fire in a house, and light, you will get 10% off of your order. I'll also put that code in the description and on our Discord server. If you like this, you'll probably also be interested in the other great projects on the Nerdification Media Network. We have a new episode of It Could Have Been Great coming out on the 15th of this month, so check out our site at nerdification.media to find out more about that or other fine podcasts. Now, folks, it's time for an affiliate link. Dinnerly is, as they put it, America's most affordable meal kit. It is about half the price of any other meal kit on the market, and I have tried most of them, and it is still my favorite, and starts at $4.49 per serving. It is super simple recipes, and you get 3 meals for $40, and that includes shipping, so it's a great value. And if you use our code, bit.ly/dinnerlymasks, you'll get $10 off of your first order. We do get a small kickback if you use that link, which really helps us out, helps us to fund future things on the podcast, fund re-records, because we would like to pay some of the people who used to play with us. So yeah, again, that is bit.ly/dinnerlymasks. This week, I also want to give a shout out to RPG Casts for listing us on their website. They are an online directory that makes it easy to find podcasts featuring women, non-binary people, LGBTQIA+ people, people of color, women and non-binary people of color, and people with disabilities. You can also find shows meant for all ages versus ones that aren't, and also shows that have transcripts. They currently have over 300 podcasts listed, and we were currently added there ourselves. So we are super appreciative for that. I know we've gotten a few listeners from them. So check out rpgcasts.com today to find your next favorite show. Last but not least are our music credits. This episode has different music than usual because I realized last time I talked up a big game about Michael Kurowski's Bard's theme that he wrote for a different campaign of Andrew's, and then I forgot to play it. I linked it in the description, but that's not the same. So now a lot of it is in this episode. You can listen to the full thing on his SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Michael-Kurowski, and there will also be a link to that in the description. He also has a lot of other great music. He's just a great musician, and he has an EP coming out next month, so please go support him. He is awesome. Real quick, one last thing before I let you get back into it. The second half of this episode does have a slight content warning for talk about suicidal ideation. There's no discussion of methods or anything specific, but we talk a little bit about Reagan's headspace at the beginning of this campaign, and she was in a really bad way. I hope it does not come across as me making light of it at all. I know I have dealt with similar mental health issues throughout my life, and so I would never ever want people to think I don't take it very seriously, and I just wanted to give y'all a heads up that that is in the latter half of this, so just keep an ear out, and if we get to that part, you can just use your skip button and go to the next question. Alright, I'll let you get back into it. Thank you so much for stopping by. So, let's get into some listener questions, by the way.
Yeah.
So, we're going to do some lightning rounds here. So several people asked me, and I feel the need to get out there. Is Dancer okay? What happened to Dancer? Why did you monsters, the party, betray Dancer? And I will say, I think the best thing I can say about that without spoiling anything is Dancer's fine.
Yeah, Dancer's okay, and at the end of the day,
he did not win the mayhem, but
yeah, at the end of the day,
fine.
That's sort of the nature of any sort of arc. I think.
Yeah,
it's just like you have to.
Some NPCs just kind of get railroaded out just because we're busy.
Yeah, and like we figured out that our group works better on established arcs of saying like 3 to 4 sessions, 5 tops. This is what we do. Yeah. Like, we show up,
self-contained little story arcs, and then we move to another self-contained story. They're all related.
Yeah, and you introduce like a vague conceit and premise, and then a number of different like actors within it. However that plays out, it plays out. just that way. Like,
yeah. But I will say that with regards to Dancer and the Mayhemers, we also had a question from Lauren, friend of the podcast, if we have profiles for all of them and would we be willing to release them? And
I mean, yeah.
yes,
So in terms of like profiles, I'd have to dig pretty deep for the actual numbers. I can give like some brief info on each of them, though.
Well, this is actually a good segue for me because I wanted to let you guys know that I am working on putting together a wiki for this. Along with another friend of the podcast, Raph, old friend of mine, and we can post the profiles for all of the Mayhemers there. You also may see some of them again, wink wink, at some point. Who knows? Well, who's to say? But I am working on a wiki right now. It is currently incredibly under construction and super messy, so I am not going to release the URL yet. I will put it in a mid-roll in an upcoming episode once it is at a point where I feel confident telling you guys where it is. It's not hard to find if you really want to, but, you know, it's a work in progress. It's full of spoilers and garbage right now. So,
and yeah.
I mean, spoilers for the things that have happened in the podcast, not spoilers for where the game is at currently, because I'm not putting those there. Anyway, it's been a long time since I've done a proper wiki, and so it's taking some time, but we're working on it, and we will post Mayhemmer profiles there. So, real quick lightning round, I'm going to do the questions that people had for the whole group, and I have their answers written out here. The first one was from friend of the podcast, Raph, and it is, who is everyone's favorite NPC? And why? Or, the way that it ended up being rephrased by me is, who's your favorite NPC and why is it Julius? Julius Goring from That Which Is Buried. They're not all Julius, but anyway, so Katie's answer was literally, oh, you mean other than Lynn? Julius. And the reasoning was, at this part of the game, she really latched on to the mystery of Julius, like, what the fuck is going on with him? Why does Jules exist? How did he survive having his throat cut? This is bizarre. What the hell? And also, she really likes spooky NPCs who turn out to just be friendly, nice people. So she thinks Julius was and is cool as hell and wants him to be around always and forever. And whenever he is in a scene, her inner mind palace is just sunshine and rainbows, which I also relate to because every time he opens his mouth, my heart sings because I love him. Julia's favorite NPC at this point, her answer was, I think I said Lynn in the last one, but Julius is a strong contender. And her reasoning was largely, I think Julius is the first NPC that Brika specifically connected with. During Julius's conversation hiring her for the assassination, she got a lot of really good vulnerable moments with him and, like, got to actually comfort another NPC, and it was a new experience for her.
Yeah.
But she got pretty invested in Julius at that point, just because he's so sad. You know, you think about it, he's just a sad guy.
Which is funny, because, like, I think there are some pretty clear telltale signs when I'm about to bring out a sad boy, and it's just like...
Oh, yeah. Like, at this point, for me, I'm like, if it's a guy, they're sad. The boys, they're not okay. The kids ain't all right.
Well, you know, that's sort of something that I'm trying to break out of that pattern, because I like to make, like, powerful, dope women, and then just, like, sort of
really broken boys,
really broken sad boys. It's like a normal dichotomy.
So speaking of, my favorite NPC at this point, I think, was Rufus and also Ellie, due to, like, what they meant to Reagan in her arc, because Ellie being found really transitioned Reagan from, I am revenge goblin, because Antony is also kind of on the vengeance train a little bit. The brother that she reunites with in Heels and Heroes. Like, they are both thoroughly broken people at that point, I think is a fair thing to say. So, and also Antony is her older brother and is also obviously a capable fighter. It doesn't kick into her protective instincts very much, in the way that Ellie does. And then Reagan tripped and fell in love with Rufus at the end of That Which Is Buried when he freaks out after killing Giles, because she knows Rufus has seen some shit, but also apparently has the mental energy to feel bad about killing assholes. And that's new. Like, how do you do that? Reagan killed her first person when she was, like, 14 years old, and she's like, yeah, I was upset then, but after that, who has the time, really? And so that was weird. And now she's in love with Rufus, and that's a lot to unpack. Anyway, but Julius, I have said on record before, is my favorite NPC overall, and probably will not be dethroned from that at this point in my life. And I can't speak to why a lot of it happens in the next couple of arcs. He's the light of my life and the love of my heart. And then Sarah here, to be a combo breaker, because she goes her own way, her favorite NPC is Kahlo, because Sarah loves birds.
And also just Kahlo is
he's like the best. He's so fucking funny.
Kudos to Matthew for taking a natural one and changing his
and making it into a character
mysterious bird monk character into he's just like this.
He's just a bird a bird the size of a man
in a man's world, and it's just like
it's so good.
Well, no, I may have to say a little bit before, but like the first check of the original one shot that we ran this group with was just Matthew.
A performance check.
It was a performance check with Kahlo playing the Sham, and it was a natural one. And from then on, just like Kahlo became this.
Kahlo's goofy now.
Yeah, Kahlo just became this like this like weird dude who every justification was like, oh well, you know, Kahlo's a bird. Like he's a bird, and he's from a different place. Like they just it's just a very different place. Like he has different ideas of how things work.
Because he's a bird.
He's a bird.
And also, like, he's a bird. I had something else to say, but then it just turned into he's a bird. I love Kahlo very much. And also, props to Sarah for having a favorite NPC who has threatened to kill her character.
That's because Sarah don't play.
Sarah don't play around. So anyway, the next question that I had for all of the whole party was, if the player characters had not gotten tangled up in the events of the campaign, what would they be doing, or like to be doing, with their lives right now instead? This also comes from Raph. Katie replies, if Monty weren't with the party, he would still be on the move, doing his best to stay in back alleys and moving aimlessly towards various middles of nowhere, which is such a Monty mood. Just drifting through the abyss, you know? Obviously, that is far from ideal. If this question presumes he has not met Lynn, he is happiest moving from library to library, just researching stuff that entertains him, and maybe someday he'd get a pet to be a little less lonely. Not ideal, but he really shouldn't stop moving. If he had not met everybody, he probably would have snuck out of Hintilla in the middle of the night at some point and left an apology note for Lynn, because he did not realize that Lynn had a crush on him until before the noose. Or Stranger Comes Knocking. It was in there somewhere.
It was before the news, I think. I'm fairly certain it was the moment when he said like, I need to leave, and she was like, wait, no, you can't.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But however hard the adventure gets, it's the best thing that ever happened to him for Monty. Like, however hard this adventuring campaign gets, it's been good for him. And Julia replies for Brika, if Brika weren't in the party, assuming she didn't get dragged into some other Hintillan bullshit with other emotionally damaged young people, she probably would have gone home to Solosia by now. I don't think her sabbatical was intended to be as long as it ends up being. She was just, in Hintilla finding herself,
Laying low for a bit from Solosia.
Laying low. Yeah. Reagan would be dead.
100%.
So that's it.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, because if Anastasia hadn't put her up to killing the Von Templars, I believe we were in-game less than 24 hours away from Reagan trying to break into the Von Templar Manor herself.
Yeah.
And kill them. And Reagan would be dead.
I mean, yeah, Reagan just isn't.
Rufus might have killed her.
Reagan just is not capable of winning that fight. She's not capable of
stealth or planning. Yeah, and she knows that. Reagan came to Hintilla to die, I think is a thing I've said a few times.
Yeah.
So yeah, if Reagan hadn't been blackmailed by Anastasia Minata, she would just be dead. And I can't really even speak to what she would have liked to be doing if she hadn't met the party, because she wanted to be dead, which is pretty heavy, I understand. She's not a deeply happy person at the beginning of the campaign. So, yeah. And we have no idea what Wisteria would be doing, except Sarah did actually give me an answer. So, one moment. It is kind of June isn't really with the party, but if the whole before the noose Anastasia Minata nonsense hadn't happened, she would ideally still be Wisteria and tutoring Lynn, because I think that might be where she was happiest. Just in her life. Just being a tutor. Lynn's a good kid.
Yeah.
We love her. And then the last question that was for the whole group was, how much has each player character changed since they were initially made to where they are in the podcast now, and how do those changes compare to what we were expecting the character to be? So Katie from Monty says, the very first iteration of Monty was very much intended to be like a cool revolutionary girl, Utana, but like boy, or like knight / Sailor Starfighter from Sailor Moon, cool hashtag aesthetic guy with a bratty personality, but that wound up underneath that was using the brattiness to hide this really sweet, lovable, vulnerable interior, winds up with his foot in his mouth a lot, and now he's like a soft, an uwu soft boy are her words here. So Monty was supposed to be cool, and I think Monty also felt he was supposed to be cool, and then he realized when he got out into the real world that he's deeply uncool, because he picked the name Montague Pensmith because he thought it sounded cool, and I think that should tell you everything you need to know about Montague Pensmith.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially
Montague Pensmith, what a cool name!
Yeah, well, and you know,
sure,
I think a lot of it is Monty developed most of his worldviews based on, I'm an heir. I'm an heir. I'm wealthy. I'm important, but all of that was a lens through which he read books. That's how he learned about the world. He learned about that world through that lens. And then as he grew,
so he wanted to be a storybook prince. Literally was his prototype for Monty.
Yeah, and so when he came out to the rest of the world, he left and escaped and began traveling. He fell in with a troupe of actors who pretty much said oh yeah, you can play the young lover, you can be the ingenue, which was good that he found a place to be, and he learned a lot from them. But at the same time, you don't there is always an element of performance and play acting to Monty, right. not to Monty as a person, to who he is at his core, but to how he interfaces with the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think a lot of his, bluster and his, trying to be cool moments are literally just Monty, well, in the story, this character is a jackass with a heart of gold, and they can get away with all of this stuff because, they're still so cool. The Tony... I think he's going for, Tony Stark with the aesthetic of Revolutionary Girl Utena, but he's also a big nerd, ooh-woo, soft boy.
Yeah, and I think...
It's basically, it was always going to come out in the wash, Monty. I'm sorry. You're a nerd.
Yeah, we're all nerds, but
anyway,
with Monty, that's I think that's an interesting little point of characterization of this is what someone who was raised to believe that they were the most important person in the world. This is how they would view but they only ever read books. This is how they would go. Oh, this would be my secret identity.
Yeah. And also, I think it speaks to how Monty views other characters around him almost as, fitting archetypes. Mortis is creepy, so obviously he's the bad guy. Or, Lynn is the sweet princess, so she is perfect and beautiful.
And she has to be protected and saved, which are ideas which, again, are reinforced by the idea of, Monty spent a lot of time with an acting troupe. That was,
yeah.
And having those, ideas break down is where I think we find a lot of the interesting parts of Monty.
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely a lot of meat on those bones. But moving on, Brika, Julia writes, has become much more open and opinionated since she started playing her, which I think is in part just her getting more comfortable with D&D, because her only experience playing before this was with me in groups where mostly she just sat there and quietly listened to everyone else play because she knew it was important to me that she played D&D, but wasn't super invested in it yet. But Brika got really invested in Brika. She always ends up putting a little more of herself into Brika than she intends, and she thinks that comes through more as the campaign goes on, especially as we start getting into more emotionally fraught moments and arcs. In particular, I think her relationship with Monty develops into something quite lovely. And Sarah writes, I'm saving myself for last because I know I'm gonna fucking go off probably, and I really can't. We don't have the time. Wisteria/June/Anne/who knows. Sarah says, hasn't really changed since Inception so much as has gotten a lot more depth, because she was a pretty shallow character concept at first, because she came into the game because I was like, Sarah, we're all gonna die next session unless you save us. Please make a character go.
Well, and it,
Sarah, please.
Well, and it naturally had to be a character who was a little more removed from things. But the nature of that character was that she didn't want to build a super hyper complex character. I think I think when we were talking about it, it was literally who would it make sense to be in there? And then I was like, oh well, this, oh, but actually, And because like at that point I was still intending for this all to be a series of one shots that like culminated in like one big like 8-hour adventure. I think that I like at that point I was like, oh, the really neat thread is if we touched base with this character who we'd only seen a little bit of before in like the first one shot that I ran here. And Sarah, being willing to just jump in and go with it, was like, yeah, totally. And then just
sure, that's me.
And then again, like it just happened to become a campaign, and so
now June has a lot of depth and amnesia. So.
Yeah, which was a fun thing to learn in the moment as the DM as well.
Oh, you learned that in the moment?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh my 100%. God, I had no idea that was improvised.
100%.
That's so good.
I knew who had taught June, but I didn't know that June didn't remember anything before that. And so I was just like, oh, dip.
I had no idea that June's amnesia was a plot twist to you also. That's so good.
Yeah, no, it was...
Because that's, like, I think the first real moment of depth that we get to see to June. It's such a powerful moment, and I love it.
Well, and
good job, Sarah.
Yeah, well, it's a moment of vulnerability, and I think Sarah's really good at, like, if she doesn't want to tell somebody something, like, in character, she won't. And that's, like, that's something that, like, I think we all want to share all these things with each other, like, about our characters because we get excited. And, like, the amount of restraint, because I'm that guy who will be like, oh, you want to know about my character's intricate backstory? And then I'll go off for, like, a couple, hours.
Oh, you wanted a tragic backstory? Well, let me tell you a backstory that'll put hair
Let me tell you the sad song Corso Slip Sheet. Just a ranger rolled into town out of the wastes. I love Corso. He was my boy. I think that covers everybody.
Well, yeah, Reagan's changed a lot. I've talked about it before. At first, I just really wanted to make a really stereotypical, crunchy revenge D&D character because it was for a one-shot, and that's really... I was trying to play against type and be someone really crunchy and, like, mean.
And you built Reagan with the intent to die. Like, that's an important thing, like...
Yeah, I built Reagan to die. Like I have said before, she came to Hintilla to die. Trigger warning for suicide, like... at content, but Reagan was not supposed to live through Before the Noose. And then she did.
It was literally called Before the Noose.
Yeah, she was supposed to die, and then she didn't, and then she kept living, and then she lived long enough that she had things to live for again.
And now it's time, and now I can kill her. Now I can kill Reagan, and it can matter.
Now you can kill Reagan, finally. Finally! Yeah, because Andrew won't kill her unless it matters.
Oh no, I'll kill her when it doesn't matter.
Anyway, Reagan changed a lot. I have a lot of feelings about it, and if I talk about it, we'll be here all day. It's better to talk about after the Masquerade arc, because there's more to talk about there. So, I'm going to unfortunately not be able to go through every question we have here, so I'm going to try to do the important ones. So, Andrew.
Yeah.
The paralogue with Reagan's backstory was really interesting. Are there likely to be more episodes set in the past like that?
Yes. So, currently we have 3 that we have planned. We still have to actually, like, record them. I'm in the process of building them now. We'll be releasing them over the next few months, sort of like here and there. I think the goal is to have them as a like either in between arcs or as like interludes, something like that, or as they become relevant.
But we have them planned for Monty, Brika, and Wisteria at the moment.
Yeah, and we're going to be trying to record those over the next month or two. A lot of it is scheduled pending because we are in the holidays right now. Some of them are going to be a little simpler than others. I think like they're all kind of serving to either widen out the backstory of the individual characters or to sort of see them in pivotal moments in their respective journeys. And so we do have some more coming. Yeah. It is something that I'm curious to do. Like we have,
and like tonally, they're all very different because all of the characters are tonally very different.
Yeah. And I think that by the end of after we do these, there's a chance we'll end up like doing other one shots. Probably from there, though, if we do have other like side content, we'll do more re-recordings of original audio. Ideally with the original,
because we have a lot of that.
Yeah, and ideally with the original players, but I know some of them like aren't actors or like theatrically inclined, and they may just like not really be keen on doing it. In which case, like we'll find somebody else. But
we'll see.
There's some crunchy stuff in there, and I think it'd be fun to go back and see like how Rufus, Kahlo, and Delia met, and
Yeah.
Like some of the other weird one-shots that I've set in the world that are slowly coming together. Threads converge.
Yeah. So next, this is also from Raph, so is the last one. I remember Andrew saying how he really hates how the races are portrayed in the rules as written, like the sweeping generalizations and some of the like more gross problematic colonialist feeling stuff in there. To that end, Raph was wondering what orc society and cultures look like in Hintilla and the wider world a bit, if you can just touch on that in 5 minutes or less. And is there any discrimination against like half orcs specifically? Like, is that a problem? Is it worse to be an orc or a half orc? Is there a trouble fitting into societies or things like that? Like, how do you approach the way that you deal with the races, which have these really sometimes awful rules as written things in them?
Yeah. So,
like all drow are evil.
Yeah.
We don't really have any.
Yeah.
Drow, but,
So, well, in the other group, I actually do have a drow, very prominent featured one. But so here's kind of how I approach that. On the one hand, I largely do away with alignment systems. I like in game people can have like rough alignments, but I pretty much do away with the idea of like this person is lawful good, and I extrapolate that out to races. So I don't think so. Like there are no such thing as like inherently evil orcs. There are no such thing as like inherently like good like halflings or elves. I think that for some people that's like an easy shorthand and it's an easy way to lean on things. I much more view it. I try to view it as the further away you get from where you start, like geographically and socially, you may encounter people who have different belief sets and belief systems, which may be anathema to you, and in those that's something that is fun to explore. But when it comes to like orcs, and I've kind of created like a blanket term of the wilder folk, which are orcs, goblins, gnolls, minotaur, and goliaths. I think there may be a few others like sort of under that banner, but generally those peoples who are treated poorly in the world. The what I wanted to avoid was having that shorthand and playing into the idea that there is a biological essentialism to the world. It's the same thing of like...
Right, and I think what's interesting is like you use what they kind of have in the rules as written as in-world prejudices. Like,
yeah.
This is how people often view these races, which is, I think it's just a very cool thing from a meta perspective of using problematic stuff in the text and then commenting on it as... This is just a prejudice. This is why people think this about orcs, and it's bad.
Well, thank you. And part of what I tried to do was I tried to couch most of the development of orcs and the wilder folk, and generally like oppressed races within the world through the lens of like different like the lens of how are stories remembered historically, and how do people give justifications in the real world? Like the elves are probably the most actively...
Yeah, they're like at the bottom of the food
Yeah, they're
chain.
the most actively like acted against, I guess.
Discriminated against.
Discriminated against group in the world because of, most people point back to like this time when there was like the first true empire in recorded history was an elven empire, and people like still hold...
So they're like, oh, well, they deserve it because they were, because stupid.
Yeah, and so...
Because racism.
Yeah, and when it comes to the wilder folk, I tried to look at like, well, the Black Peaks are the central mountain range where most of them live. Why would they generally be... why would someone generally, go against people like that? Why would generally somebody have prejudice? And I said, okay, well, why? Because... a lot of these systems are feudal, some mixture of feudal and capitalist, with concentrations.
Yeah. Plus, there's also there's an element of just like colonialism and people in other societies looking down on cultures that are different from theirs.
That's actually entirely it, because you have these human.
That's the heart of the thing.
You have these human and dwarven centric societies which are built around feudal caste systems, as well as more like probably modern, maybe like 17th century 18th century like capitalist, like early capitalist movements, and so like those naturally demand consumption and expansion to the detriment of everyone, I think. But so, like, all right, well, the Black Peaks have certain resources that they want, and so when you start, when these groups try and begin like colonizing and conquering, you start telling lies about the people who live there, so that the people who your citizens don't ask questions.
You're like, oh well, it's fine that we have to enlighten them, uplift them.
Yeah, and so when it comes to like orcs specifically, we don't get into them a ton yet in this campaign, primarily because in my other group in the same world that's running around on the other side of the continent, my brother Daniel, who played Mortis Gimghoul, he has an orc shaman named Kresh Ruktama, who is like the de facto party leader, and we sort of explore a lot of the orcish beliefs, ideologies, and approaches to things through him. And part of what's important, I think, is orcs are not monolithic. They have a tribal system wherein like there are different communities of orcs, but some orcs are patriarchal, some orcs are matriarchal, some orcs are neither or. Some orcs are more aggressive, some are more passive, some are more druidic, some are more...
And unfortunately, we don't get to explore a ton of it because the Black Peaks are nowhere near us geographically, and because you were exploring all of that stuff in that campaign, which was going on concurrent with ours. So it's just...
And that's
I think more will come up eventually. It's just gonna be a while.
and again, like part of that is sort of the weakness of we did not know this was a podcast, and by the time we kind of figured out it was a podcast, like we're releasing these recordings from over a year ago in this case.
Yeah, I think we're at now on a 15-month delay.
and so like when some when I'll ask questions, which we love the questions, like it's a thing where it's like, oh, that's so good. Oh, normally...
Yeah, I wish we could have talked about that.
Yeah, and normally we would just say, like, all right, well, like, in the next episode, or the next arc, let's have, like, an orcish character who can have this. Oh, really cool. But with this, we
can't, because we're on such a long battle.
Yeah, and, like...
It will be years before you get to them.
Well, and like, we may do one-shots here and there exploring other parts of the world, depending on interest from y'all, but, like, that's kind of something that we are still figuring out as we figure out this whole thing. But
So I have one last question before we go. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to get through everything, though some of these would have been, spoilers, so I think it's okay. Yeah. The last question, because I have to get going. Does Kahlo know any swear words in our language, like in common? And if so, who did he pick them up from?
He knows swear words. He picked them up from Rufus and Delia.
Probably, yes.
Like they both when they have to, they know how to swear.
Yeah, they both swear. We do have to put them both in jail forever.
As just like a brief aside, when it comes to like this world, like we're still figuring a lot of things out, especially back then, and so there was a lot of like active backfilling and active like trying to build up this world around it.
So we appreciate you guys coming on this journey with us, because I think it's a very interesting process, and I am tickled that so many of you think so also.
Same. And it's I do want to like emphasize that, like, if you have any like questions just like about the game in general, like feel free to reach out to us, like on Discord, on Twitter. We're not too...
We're always happy to talk outside of these. I want to talk to all of you all the time.
We're not too hard to find, but like, when it comes to this sort of like wider idea of how we're trying to present this, I think that looking back, we're like, and as we go through it, we're doing our best to like keep everything consistent, but every now and then, we do run into things where it's just like, where like we sort of have to figure things out as we go.
So thank you for figuring it out with us.
Yeah, it's not like I've said it. I think the first thing I ever said about this podcast was that it's and this group in general is that it's never going to be perfect. It never was perfect. But it is, but I think that there is value to it, and I think that like the way that it shapes out, I think it becomes something really special. And I think as a slight teaser, the next arc is going to be our longest one, that we've done so far. And like it's substantial.
I think the next arc is as long as the rest of the podcast so far.
And as we've had very short arcs up till now, but like relatively speaking, but just as a heads up, like, it can get a little heavy. It can get a little like fraught. But one of the things that I did want to...
But basically, just prepare yourself emotionally to do what I do. And emotionally trust fall into Andrew. And hope that he does not collapse into a million pieces.
I am always about to. But I do want to say, like, even though, like, things may seem, like, very fraught at times, part of the reason why this group works and we can get to, like, very emotional places, especially in the upcoming arcs, is because we trust each other, we talk to each other, we make sure that we're taking care of each other.
So yeah, on that note, I know that was a little bit of an abrupt ending, and hello, this is me, Diana from the future. I had to run out of the recording booth when we finished this episode, so here I am, closing this out. I appreciate you guys coming to listen. Thank you so much for sending us your questions. If you had a question and you didn't submit it or it didn't get answered, please reach out to us on Twitter or Discord, and we will be super happy to field your questions. And as always, thanks for stopping by.